the truth that's hidden in plain sight. So, you guys, we're actually going to go ahead and talk about some really crazy stuff that's happening globally beneath the scenes. You may be hearing some of the news, but by golly, you didn't hear it all. So, let's get into it. First and foremost, let's get into what's happening with the battles and the wars, okay? So, China is preparing for a billion-man war, okay? Trying to take over Taiwan. Why? Because the people who fled from the last war went to Taiwan, and there's a lot of like seaports in like Taiwan has the controls over like the ports, right? Like exporting, importing, stuff like that, right? So a lot of like trade and commodity like type stuff. Okay? So that's why China wants to go ahead and take over Taiwan. So they actually said that they are willing to go to war with any nation countries who go into the Indo-Pacific. So not just NATO, anybody. They said they bars none. Anybody that goes into the Indo-Pacific, they are willing to war with, which is crazy. So even though some have predicted that that would be a fail, and we're going to talk about it, right? So China, they have a lot of manpower. They have a lot of missiles and are, rapidly making those, okay? They could attack Taiwan and like it would take us hours to respond just because of distance, right? But the US just made a hold on. Let me make sure I'm saying this right. A Filipino agreement, an American-Filipino agreement, saying that NATO would protect them, aka Filipino is part of NATO. The Philippines is part of NATO. Well, within that treaty, they have granted America 4 military bases. So now America can make their bases in the Philippines, which is facing China, and basically letting them know, like, our air is superior. Our air strikes and stuff like that is superior. So you would have to really try, in order to make that work, right? And all of NATO has agreed to protect all of NATO. So no matter if somebody attacks one part of NATO, they attack all of NATO, okay? And so the thing about this is, if America is in the Philippines, then that would deter China from trying to attack against Taiwan. But that's only if the deterring works. Because if it doesn't, and Chinese leader gets really upset about it, he could cause a war behind. You can cause a war behind Taiwan still. Okay? So that's pretty crazy. Then, so Russia warring on Ukraine right now. As of today, it was a shit show. Yeah, it was a disaster, and I'm going to tell you why. So, Ukraine and Russia were, warring, fighting it out, shooting. Well, Russian soldiers were actually in Ukraine's gear, right? Trying to like throw them off and stuff. Well, Russians were being tore up. Ukraine was like, really giving it to them. You know what I mean? And Russia was like, dang, they were reconsidering. They were like, hey, yo, retreat. Like, there's too many casualties. Go ahead and retreat. It's a bloodbath, right? So Russia began to start retreating. Ukraine seen Russian soldiers on foot and decided to call in the artillery, and you know what happened from there. Yeah, all bad. They were already retreating. Right. For them. Okay, it was all bad for them. So that was crazy. Now, in the meantime, in between time, since like 2000, since like mid 2000s or whatever, Iran has been messing with the United States maritime laws, right? Messing with the seas, you know, pushing their boundaries, doing things that they really just edgewise had no business doing. Well, while all of that's going on, it's starting to take America off because, like, yo, like, you're really starting to mess with the security of the sea, of the maritime laws. You know, you're really pushing it, right? So they struck against Iran. Okay, so there's a lot going on now. In the midst of this, Maui fires happen, Texas fires happen, Illinois fires happen. A lot of random fires have been taking place. What seems to be random, right? And they're started from these things called dew machines. Yeah, direct energy weapon, a direct energy weapon. It's just like lasers that point at a certain space using microwave technology, radiation, and just basically can just melt metal, melt plastic, melt you name it. Like, it can shrivel it, mess it up, tear it up. Okay, this recently just happened in Maui as well. Please go watch the previous episodes to find out all about that. However, those strikes were reminiscent of Pearl Harbor. Remember whenever they were trying to attack America and Hawaii being American property, it caused a war. Well, here's the crazy thing. That is happening, but Hawaii is actually saying that America is their enemy. Probably because they're getting tore up behind America. Okay? So, that's all wild, right? That's all a little crazy, if you know what I'm saying. So, and in the midst of this, Germany has actually sent tanks against Russia. Yeah. It's giving World War II. Okay, you know, like, that's exactly what they did before. So Russia's got it coming from U.S. and Germany. China, you know, got it coming from the United States and those in NATO. Then China's going against Taiwan, and then they're trying to take over other places as well. So it's interesting. And mind you, they're adding new people like Mexico, Iran, you know, stuff like that into the BRICS. Okay? Whew, this is getting deep, y'all. So it's said that here shortly we're going to be a cashless society. Cash and pounds, cash and, you know, coins is going to be harder and harder and harder to use moving forward because they want to go cashless. Okay? Meanwhile, a human trafficking tunnel was just busted. One for drugs coming from New Mexico, one of the biggest smuggling rings that we've found. And also an understanding of, by the way, if you haven't already, go watch the, what was that, episode 5? Could have been episode 5 or episode 4. Where we talk about the CIA agent who whistleblew and let people know what's going on with the tunnels. Well, that's not all that's going on with them tunnels. We've just found out that they're, you know, kidnapping children and stuff like that, which is a part of that video too. But they found out it's happening in Disney, it's happening in hotels, it's happening, you know, just on like the street manholes and stuff like that. Like, they have strategic places that they are trafficking people, and they're using like shelves, tunnels, you name it. Okay? Okay, so then we're going to talk about nuclear, right? So if things go nuclear, there's actually states in America that are predestined to be sacrificed, right? That was the plan. Now the United States is trying to update this plan, but let me tell you what it was. These certain states were known as nuclear sponges because they had the least casualties, right? The least amount of people living in these regions, to where we can put our weapons at silos, right? We could put our weapons at that if they strike, that we would strike, right? But also that if they struck those places, that it would basically absorb the blow, right? It would take the blow for like the rest of America, right? These certain cities and states. Well, as wild as that is, we've got some of the names of those states. Are you ready? Colorado, Nebraska, Montana, Wyoming, and the Dakota. One of the Dakotas. Okay? Now, there is top 10 states for human trafficking. Okay? So the top 10 states for human trafficking, I do believe it's in this order, okay, is Cali as number 1, like the biggest ring. Then Texas, Florida, New York, Michigan, Ohio, Georgia, Illinois, Missouri, Mississippi. Wow. So just know that if you're in those areas and there's a lot of disappearances, it's not a coincidence. Okay? Yeah. So, guys, that's been the tea. Okay? That's what's been hidden in plain sight. Okay, thank you for watching, liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Stay blessed, never stressed, with much peace, much power, much love, much light, and of course, much joy. I'll see you guys soon.